over the first several years of my life or so, maybe up until at least 8, 9 years old, maybe even 10 years old. Whenever I'd go outside and have a walk with my family, usually it'd be either with my grandparents or with my mom. But whenever I'd take a walk with my mom, she would often start to, reminisce on the different things in life that are important or fascinating to talk about, and should bring up interesting things. They're usually different themes, but there's a collection of a few or several central stories that she would tell over and over again. They were like the kind of biggest deal. I remember one of these stories. It's not really relevant to anything super central here, but I just remember she used to talk about how, like one day, she almost won the lotto. She had this ritual, this routine of playing the same pre-selected numbers over and over again on a regular basis. That was like her thing for a little while. She wasn't like tremendous into it, but just as a regular thing. And she felt to always play these specific numbers. And one week or one weekend, she did not play the lotto that particular weekend. And she recalls then finding what the numbers were for the drawing that she missed. And by her story, I mean, let me say, the woman didn't, cease talking about this story. She wouldn't shut up about it for like maybe years. She would bring it up several times or more per year for years until it just became old news. So probably if you're doing that, it really happened. She said, I would have won millions and millions of dollars if I just played the same regular numbers I was committed to playing. It was a timeline shift or something. And she was always very, it's extremely interesting. If that happened to you, probably be telling that story a lot often, for a little while at least, right? And so I'd always hear that story over and over again. I don't know how old I was. I was alive when this happened, I think. And then when I got like 6, 7, 8 years old, by then it had already happened, and she would just always tell this story over and over. The same numbers, 8, 18, 28, 38, 48, and 12. That was the thing. That was the set of numbers. And it happened, supposedly. Perhaps one could look that up to verify. It'd be interesting. Okay. But anyway, so there's a bunch of stories that people share with each other that are like the natural things of interest. So now there's another particular story that took place that was there. There was something that she would repeat to me also multiple times. And you can't really appreciate the significance of these kinds of things, or these kinds of stories, while you're a kid, because everything you're seeing is normal, and it's also lacking context and the value that experience brings in helping to set that and all that. So you hear it and you go, oh yeah, sure, I bet it must be true, sounds great. Only when you think about this later in life. Now I'm in my mid-30s, about almost late 30s, thinking back on this, it's just kind of stunning to recall this, remember this, to consider the meaning, potential meaning behind what she was conveying, and that in conjunction with, as a constellation, everything else happening in this life right now. What was this thing that she shared with me? It's very interesting. Remember, many times once we'd go on a walk, she'd start telling me the same thing. She'd say, Jana, something, I have to tell you something. And one thing I kind of considered before I even started recording this here, I don't remember exactly every specific detail, so I'll say it as best as I remember it. I don't recall exactly. There's one or two things that I'm a little blurry about. But she said to me, listen, I want you to know something. She was speaking to me, okay? She had sole custody of me at that time. My parents had gotten divorced when by the time I was about 4 years old, it was official. They split up substantively, I think when I was just barely 2 years old. Okay, for a number of reasons, as I understand it. So she would bring me out, she'd tell me, listen, I want you to know something. This is very important. This is the most important thing I can tell you. And I'm listening. And of course, if I've heard this story before, you know, I know what's coming, but she always tells it a little different, or, you know, stories are stories, but they're interesting to listen to even multiple times again. And she would say, you know, before you were born, I have to tell you this, because this was always so fascinating to me, it's incredible, like, and all this, right? Just so that you know, before you were born, I had a dream. Like, almost like as a prophetic dream or a visitation of something. Okay, we've heard roughly analogous narratives and stories behind other kinds of central figures and that sort of thing happening, right? So it's not a completely novel concept, but she's looking at me plainly saying, I had this, you need to know this now. And she would regularly repeat these things. Probably by the time I was about 10 or so, I don't know, the dynamics of family rhythm sort of changed by then, and then over the couple years following, and then a little more after that. And then the subject matters fell out of the cycle, I suppose. Probably the last time I heard this was when I was 9 or 10 around. But she repeated this story several times or more in those few years between, you know, I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, like this. She'd say, Jana, this dream I had before you were born. I don't know if it was before I was conceived or before I was physically birthed, but she was pregnant. And she would say that someone came to me in a dream. And as a side note, I don't know who. I don't remember whether she meant to say that it was my grandma who came to me in the dream. I also have slight doubt. Was it before I was born, or whether it was... No, it was before I was born. That's right. Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. But I don't know who. I don't know if she represented it as some ancestor, some older woman, reminiscent of a grandma I had, perhaps on the other side of my family. I don't know why I'm linking those two concepts. Maybe that's right. Maybe somebody should ask her, right? Okay, whether it was somebody else, but it was this feminine figure, possibly ancestral, already past or deceased, possibly angelic. One of those or more. And she was held up to be this way. She said, this person came to me, this entity, this angel, or grandma or somebody came to me in a dream and said to me, you are going to have a child. That child that you're having, he is going to be a boy. And continuing, that the child you're going to have is going to be a boy. And one more thing you need to know about this child. He's going to be, in the substantive sense, just very, very important and special. Okay, that kind of deal. Who this person is going to end up being, he's going to end up, this is not a regular average guy. This is what is being brought down to convey to this woman, my mother at that time. you've been chosen to be the mother of somebody who, but that's it. There's no further articulable. There's no explicit designation that you could give words to it. You know, just that the effect would be this is someone who's going to be high. Like that, but like real something, a real special kind of person in this world. That's as much of the substance as we're able to bring through. But she never forgot this. Now, if she had this dream before I was born, several years later, when I'm, beginning to have more complex construction conversations, enough to talk about things in more detail, to have extensive talks about this, right? How old you got to be for that? Like 6, 7, or 8? Yeah, she's talking about this years later, like all the time, and she made sure to keep that in mind. Must have had quite an impression on her. And she kept this for years in her registry to then convey to me repeatedly the importance of this. And that she conveyed saying, I can't wait to see how this turns out, because that's what I was left with. And that's it. And she further added that I was shown one additional thing. I was given this information and nothing that much more in the details and the particulars or specifics. But then she conveys to me, I was shown one image of you as an adult. Once you've, so to speak, arrived, there's this role, there's something that you're going through life, and then you're gonna be in the position. And she simply said, all I perceived from that is that you're standing upright. I'm meeting you out in front of somewhere, some building. You're coming out as a full-grown adult. I saw it she said, I saw this very clearly in this dream. You're coming out, and you greet me, and in your hand you have a suitcase, and in your dress you're fully dressed up in the suit, and you're standing in the position, and you're in front of some kind of thing. And it was like, that's the scene, and that's the moment. She said, I saw this, and this is from the future, and this is the moment that she's waiting to see play out. I guess by prophecy or psychically or whatever you want to have it. 30 some odd years later, who knows what this all could mean. But I remember those days when she would tell me those stories about the dreams over and over. She would tell me. If she told me a couple weeks prior, she'd go back and tell it again, So that's part one of this story. This is something I heard from her growing up in my earlier years. But, life moves and goes along in the way that it goes. Really, my life took a lot of interesting turns. Decently interesting in a kind of way. Here's what I'll say. I ended up going through high school, through college here locally in the city I grew up in. And when I ended up being post-college, had a job in a certain place very briefly, but didn't end up, long story short, moving through different phases in life. And eventually, I got to a position where I didn't want to live at home anymore. So I worked things out for myself in a way and got over to what would be, in this life of mine now, the only time I've lived distinctly away from same city, I guess, technically. I guess if you're a New Yorker born and raised, if you're moving from Brooklyn to Queens, you can call that, sort of half starting your own life for the most part, right? For a little while that went that way. So, it's important, of course, for everybody to fly out away from the nest that they were born in and grew up in. Even if you fly back close, as is sort of half the case with me. coming into where my grandparents were living, now with that apartment under my name. But continuing, at being close to where I was raised in the nearby apartment, which was home to me when I was growing up. But now, the second part of the story is like this. I've just moved out, and with that comes truly a new mindset. You know, really, no matter who you are and what you're doing, if you're still hanging around the nest, so to speak, it's not really the same. Once you physically get up and, you know, like it's not school or like a dorm, but it's you literally having a different residence elsewhere, your mind, like in the deepest layers, just changes and you become something different. You form, it aligns, it just goes. You know, most of us know what this is. So I had this experience finally for the first time. You know, I've had a couple to a few major relationships or significant relationships at that time in my life already. By 23, 24, yeah. Moved out, got to live with somebody who I ended up being very good, almost brotherly sort of friends with. It's an Asian guy, Chinese guy, several years older than me. And wow, firstly, did his influence have a profound effect on where I ended up putting my energies and my direction and focus in my life. Meaning where a couple videos ago I mentioned I wasn't really so much into the party scene even through college. Boy, I dipped my toe slightly at best, maybe through like years age 22 and 23. But once I moved out, see, of course, and when my roommate is like the guy to do all the things with that, but I wouldn't have changed hardly anything. And I really see with hindsight how that couldn't have made, I wouldn't have hardly done it any differently, despite the crazy stories and all this. So, and that would come in the couple years that I lived out there with him, kind of doing my own thing, doing our own thing there. And you know, there's so many more stories I could say, but I mean, that's not really what this video is about. So now, where am I? One day, I find, oh, the New Life Expo is coming back into town. For people who are familiar with this, it's a long-standing expo since I think the 80s or early 90s, something like this. All the yogis and vegetarian things and all health gurus and also like new age psychics, teachers, all these kinds would go there. Okay, either if they were selling a product or they were running seminars and offering services like this. Okay, it was a very cool event, and it would happen twice a year. Okay, it was a sort of a family tradition almost to go there. They'd, except for a couple years they were in a different hotel, but most of the time they were in the New Yorker hotel, that famous one. I think what's his name, Nikola Tesla died on the 33rd floor, if I remember correctly, hearing the details of that hotel. Right, so but mind you, they moved this event over to the nearby Pennsylvania hotel for a couple years. And one of those years, this was the year that I moved out, I went regularly with my mom twice a year. Every 6 months or so they'd come around to town. And now this was the first time that I was going, like, so to speak, from my own household, not with mom in that sense, right? So I go there. Having gone there for years, I sort of had my New Life Expo friends that I had there, right? Usually like older people. There's one particular guy who I met up with on this one particular day, Michael Corbett, cool guy, personal trainer, husband of Diana Brownstone. At that time, she was like a astrologer and some other things, I think, as well, and entertainment possibly. But anyway, so me and Michael Corbett go over to the New Life Expo. We enter. I'm looking around this new venue because it's a different setting for the first time in years. The owner, I think Mark Becker, moved it over for whatever reason, probably the rent. And then I'm moving around from floor to floor. We're investigating the layout of this whole, big expo. Not huge, but, big enough. And we go from table to table. We're talking to the different people there and like this. So this would end up being one of the more amazing, puzzling, fateful, should I say, I don't know, days that I've ever had, that I looked back on this for years after. The significance of things that we experience or that we encounter often, we don't understand or appreciate the full depth of these things and the full scope of the meaning until the passage of time at the very least. And if we're lucky, that and the other things with further insight gets us some perspective on things. I come up to one particular table and there's a woman, blonde woman. As it ends up, she's Turkish or Turkic, from Turkey, but like Americanized. I don't know what kind of Turkish, and there's various kinds, right? All the various religions and all this. So she was there, and she's apparently a moderately well-known figure or person within that, I guess you could call it, industry. What was she doing? She was offering coffee cup psychic readings. Okay, now we've all heard of like tea leaf readings, and most of us have heard of coffee grinds, coffee cup style readings, which is a similar idea for tea leaf reading. The idea is you drink the coffee that's non-filtered, and I have a whole thing about that, but when you finish, you set the grinds down, and those people in life who have that perceptive capacity to be able to peer into either tea leaves or coffee grounds is very interesting. When this first happened, to me this was all like, and I was mostly a regular guy pretty much at that time. This was about 2 years pre-coma, just so you know. My whole life is two phases. There was the person I was, who has that legal name I have that I identified with, and that story, that's pre-coma. Post-coma is something else. Post-coma is I mean, I would say this comfortably before. Now, because of the new developments in the last year or two in this life and everything, I'm slightly more, hesitant to just shout this out. But like, it's basically God mode. It's basically Limitless from the movie. It's basically Lucy, starring Scarlett Johansson, where those are only modestly exaggerated, cinematographically exaggerated depictions. Okay? Only moderately at best of an exaggeration. I mean, that's unbelievable. Okay? But anyway, so this is a couple years before that. In recent years, I've actually taken on an ability to do exactly what this woman, not exactly, I think she had tremendous experience doing this for many, many people. But some eyes, and I'm not the only one at all, some eyes develop for certain reasons. I have a basic understanding of what they are. I'm not going to go into that for now, but yeah, with coffee grounds, and you can peer into the dimensionality. It's like you could see into it. It's like the crystal ball. It's like the crystal ball, so to speak. But at the time I sat down with this woman, I said, what is this? I guess I was still a little bit wet behind the ears, as the saying goes. I've never really heard about this. Oh, you could see into the coffee grinds and then see my future? Wow, you know. And even though I grew up with this stuff, even though I was around these people since, 7 years old, really, semi-regularly, I guess you could say, with that influence always in my life, in one form or another, I still had that part of me that would doubt these things. I want to be the cynical scientist and say, should I believe what's happening now? I don't know. And all that, right? Of course, now, today, it's the truest thing. It's the truest thing in the world. All that kind of woo-woo stuff. Woo-woo stuff is not really woo-woo, but there's still some people left who aren't so sure. Take my word for it, guys. I sit down with this woman. Michael Corbett's next to me. He's looking at it. He's advocating it. Yeah, oh, this would be great. Oh, maybe I'll do it too. Or why don't you go ahead and do it? Oh, that's great, John. Sure. There's a long line. There's a number of people sitting there. You have to sign in and wait in the queue, supposedly, in a sense. She's talking to other people there. Yeah, ends up she was somewhat well known, right? When I finally got to sit down with her. And by the way, as a side note, I'll mention, I've maybe told this story in its full details like this to a handful of people tops in my life. Probably like, a couple girlfriends, maybe a family member or so, and a friend tops. Like, that's it. Okay? Probably on one hand I could count the number of times I've directed the full telling of the story to another human being. But I'm telling it out now and like this. And so only a few people knew that this happened. I sit down with the woman. I forgot her name. And she says, okay, nice to meet you. I've been doing this a long time, 12 years or more. And, she looked, I don't remember how old she could have been, maybe somewhere between early 30s or 40, 45, something like this. Okay. And she explained, she says, well, I'm going to pour you a cup of coffee and you'll have it. And you're just going to set down the coffee grinds when you're done, after you've, put your mouth into it and shared the energy and prompted the, metaphysical, crystalline, chemical alignment of everything to put your energy into it, and it aligns with yours. Really becomes an extension of you, sort of, basically speaking. Once the grounds are left, the cup was set down, and I was watching her out of the corner of my eye where she was doing the other people that she was doing. You showed up there. She looked like somebody who's just doing it all the time. It's like a rote matter of course for her. It's just like, okay, whatever, do the thing. All right, okay, let's see what we see. She's so like blasé. It's like, whatever, all part of the thing, right? All part of the rhythm. And she was very like composed, and she seemed to be giving a lot of details to people that were nearby. I wasn't really overhearing so much as to eavesdrop, but like close to it, because you could see how they're operating and all this. So I paid money for this. Right, you sit down, you have to pay whatever it was, maybe $20 or something like this. So I'm thinking, all right, I better get my $20 worth. She's gonna give me all these deep details, like she was giving everybody else. She was very like chatty and mouthy and like a lot of content. You get to sit down with her. These are half-hour sessions. It's a booked, so you're gonna get a lot. You talk for 30 minutes straight at a coherent pace. You could get a lot of stuff, right? And I figure that would be better. That's value. That's the value in this life. Mo is better, as they say, right? That's the American motto, right? I think another person who I knew from that expo actually who had a whole joke about that, saying, the old civilizations, they had all their ancient sayings, right? You know, the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians, and these guys, those guys. They had, you know, to thine own self be true, and know thyself. And then finally, down to America, it's Mo is better, Mo is better. You got Mo is better. That whole thing, right? Very entertaining. Sad to say that guy passed away, Sean David Morton, several months ago. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm expecting a very, what for her should be a typical experience, and for me, I've done like 1 or 2 versions of that kind of thing before with someone, always through that expo, right? New Life Expo. And they were interesting, you know, and you get mixed results, sort of, right? And also what seems to be true is that, you know, even from when I was 16, 17, 18 and onwards through my early 20s, I found that people had a relatively hard time reading me, even psychics. For some reason, it seemed that what they were able to produce with me, for reasons that neither me, myself, nor they could figure, it felt like they couldn't really get a grasp on things with me. You see? And I felt that about whoever the other person was. And again, multiple other people have done this with me. So I'm sitting with her thinking, all right, maybe she'll like really get some grasping here, right? Something concrete. She looks, and this is how she begins. In that same kind of casual way, she's looking down and she's observing, and she's going, okay, well, I'm going to take a look here and let's just see what we have. Okay, and I'm just watching. And then all of a sudden, she's about to start just saying her regular casual things, and then she just freezes all of a sudden. You could see the expression on her face, her eyes completely change. She's about to start her whole rhythm where she just goes into the regular thing, and then she's just like, wait a minute, looking, and then she looks deeper, and she has this stunned look on her face. Basically, it was what I could describe it as, just this puzzled, stunned, shocked look on her face. My guy Michael Corbett nearby is wandering around, walking around, you know, coming, hovering close, you know, like that. So he's sort of around in the passive sense. And I'm sitting with her, and she's just, her mouth is hanging there, like moment after moment. And I've never seen a human being, okay, do that, you know, like organically really make a reaction like that about something. And in context, what are you supposed to make of this, right? And by the way, she's there making a reading about you, right? So I'm just watching her, and I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to react to this, right? And I'm quiet too. I'm about to ask her, like what is it? What's going on? But I just am watching patiently, and then she's just like, after a few moments, she literally just keeps staring, and then she just goes, oh my God. I'll never forget this. She said, oh my God. And she kept looking. She was rising. She was almost like shaking at that point. Almost. And then again, a second time, even deeper. Oh my God.
As fine as George can be.
Then she looked up at me. And she said, oh my God. And she started fucking crying. And I'm sitting here like, wow. You know, this is... And that auto cynic that's in the back of my mind, of course, back then always active. Like, what am I supposed to make of this? Is this part of the simulation, the simulated experience of what this is supposed to be, the experience of the reading? No, she wasn't doing that with any of the other people that were sitting there for the several priors she was reading. They were normal. She was doing this for 12 years. Which she's so, like, in it the way she was. And I'm a decent judge and reader of people, I think. I am. You know, you don't really care or bother to, there's no real payoff. She doesn't get an extra tip for, like, flooring me with this wild ride. Okay? You know? She looks up at me. I remember these words exactly. Oh my God, she said 2 times. Looks up at me, it's still like this chain of oh my gods. The first thing she said to me that was not just oh my God over and over, this was where she's still like half crying. She looks up at me and she says, "You don't even know who you are." Wow, that's very puzzling. Who am I? What is this? You don't even know who you are. But she didn't say it in the way, I don't know if I'm doing the best job recreating it, not in the way of like, oh, you don't even know who you are in this life right now. Like, you need to go find yourself today and be a man or something. No. It was like, you don't even know what your real identity is, like who you're gonna end up being. As she's looking to read into the future, the destiny, that was a kind of resonance that came across. It's like, you don't even know who you are. Like, oh my, who am I, this great guy? I don't know. Let me tell you, you know, growing up, for me, it was just this, you know, how could I classify myself? It's a little difficult. You know, exceptionally good looking kid. You know, above average intelligence and a little bit of a rigidity, nevertheless. And furthermore, just liked hanging out with my friends. Regular type of stuff. And like this. Okay, and had different interests here and there. Or whatever. One thing I didn't see myself, you know, despite what I said earlier about my mom and what she had in the dream of hers about me, but you know, from my own self-intuitive reading about myself, given my capacity to figure things out where I was then in my life, I didn't see myself as someone who'd necessarily be anything. One thing I didn't have was great ambition of a real, like, engine, practical driving sort of sense. It didn't appeal to me, you know. Everybody likes money, everybody likes the idea of being rich, but you know, to me, life is more about the experience of what you're doing, and as long as you're making ends meet, you know, and you're happy with your people and your friends and like this, you're simple guy kind of stuff in that way, right? Or whatever. So, there she is. You don't even know who you are. Patiently listening. And she's looking back, looking for more. And again, she's stunned. She's stunned. Her body language is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like, I don't want to say hysterical, because it has slightly the wrong connotation, but only slightly compared to what I want to express about what her demeanor was. And it was opposite of what was going on earlier with other people. And not like anything I've ever seen before. She then goes, looks at me and says, "Listen, I mean, all right, look, I know you let me give you a little something, okay? You've paid for this reading. I'm going to give you a little something just to," and she like conveyed it like this, just to show you or convey to you that I'm not fucking around with you, okay? And she looks and she's like, "I see your grandma very recently passed." Yep, she got it. 4 to 6 weeks prior to me sitting down in that chair, my grandma died. Unbelievable. Call that out like this. Your grandma just died. Yeah. I wish my memory was a little better. This was 14 or 12 years, 13 years ago, something like this already. So now slight details are starting to phase out. But I remember she touched upon a rapid succession of 2 to 3 things, each of which are a long shot to guess about. One of them being that grandma just passed very recently now. And then she went right to another thing where that was like also like, whoa, whatever it was. I remember there were at least 2 or 3, at least 2. And once you do that, then you've got me. You've disarmed me. I'm like, okay, like you're a little more elevated. I'm paying closer attention. I'm giving you stronger weight now. So I'm listening. What's going on? This is a very emotional start to the reading. Meanwhile, I'm still thinking, in the practical sense, okay, but like, give me more stuff. Give me something I could really, use. Like, oh, I got the meat out of the reading. I got the biggest bang for my buck. Okay, I got 27 distinct things that she told me, and oh, that's so cool. No, this wasn't going to be that kind of a reading. In contrast to what she was doing with everybody else. She gets that out of the way. She's like, that's just to show you that this is what's going on. We're sitting here. Here we are. You're here. Okay. And she's like, all right, man. And because she just does that as the showy spectacle, but then she comes back to the original thing. Interestingly. Like as if there's 2 classes of what to show or depict, the frazzly stuff and then the real substance. She looks back, she says, look, I could sit here and tell you, all these things. I told you a couple things already off the bat. I could sit here and do the same kind of reading like for you that I've done for everybody else. Okay, and just wow you with this and that. Okay, that's what I do for a living, so that's how I make my money. Okay. Wow, what the hell is going on? And she looked at me and she said, okay, but I am not gonna do that here. Like, this, what I have to convey to you, sir, is beyond any of that trivial stuff that everyone gets off on, that they want to come for that. You see? That's what they want. Please the crowd, give them what they want. She's like, I have to set that aside for now, besides a few things I told you. And then she goes on to tell me a couple more things further still. She says, I'm going to tell you exactly this, which is the most important thing. All right, you're starting a new branch in your life right now. Something recently has happened. Maybe I believe she said this, that's right. So like you believe you just moved out, or you had some recent transition like this. Like, yeah, okay. Whatever you're doing in your life right now, that you're on this new path, that's not what you're going to be doing in your life. That is nothing compared to who you really are, what's going to happen. And she's like, you don't understand. I don't understand why. Now I'm going to describe a little bit more of the story to you, and then I'm going to do a little bit of an analysis at another level, like a root level or meta level sort of assessment of this, to see what it is that I was perceiving, not just at the literal level, but again at the more substantive, kind of next dimensional or underlying level. She said, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna keep going in the direction you're going now for about 1.5 years, 2 years, something like this. And about 1.5 to 2 years from now, you're going to have a life-changing event. That life-changing event then is going to bring and is going to herald the beginnings of the transformation and the uncovery and the process of development along the real vector path, so to speak. I'm saying it that way, of what's going to really happen for you and all this. By the way, that session happened in May of 2014. She was exactly right. Just short of 2 years later, exactly on April 2016, that's when that coma happened that changed my life forever. The epic coma, which I've even made sort of videos about, slightly alluding to or whatever. Written up thousands of pages of documentation on the stuff that's happened since. I don't have. I should probably do something with that more now that we have AI with that. But anyway, coming back to this. So, I'm still listening for more, right? I just paid, again, $20. I want, come on, like, give me a little more. So she's telling me this, your life's going to change in 2 years. Okay? And then it's really going to happen. What's going to happen? I'm wondering. She looks back down into the coffee cup. And then again, she's like, oh my God, oh my God. She gets up from her chair. This was unbelievable because she had the table and there's a row of tables and everybody's by the wall. She gets up, it's almost like half towards hysteria. Like uncontrollable. She's like sobbing, like tears of like, I don't know, joy like this. Profundity. What is going on? She gets up, she goes, walks out towards around the table behind me, towards the middle area, nearby where the elevators are, just like with her arms practically like flailing. It was like, it was not an act. You could tell. This was like, wow. And she's just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Oh my God. And I'm looking at you. I'm looking at her, and she comes back closer to me. She reaches out her arm, and she's like, looks at me, and she's just like, you have no idea. I can't believe that this even happened. This is a real story, people. This really happened. She looks at me and she says, you have no idea what an honor it is. You have no idea what an honor it is for me to be able to meet you. You have no idea who you are. And she's shaking my hand like I'm the fucking president of presidents. From some past life or something, right? Let's change context a little bit, okay? How did I grow up? I'll note quickly, I did not have an extensive exposure to Judaism at that age. Okay, in fact, that's one of the things that would rapidly change. I almost want to avoid pre-commenting on it because it's so profound. It has to do with exactly what happened right after the coma, and then what I saw. Yeah, that gets its own damn video series, which should possibly, or should happen soon, and may people help me with it, God willing, or something. Let's continue. So, the currently existing archetype for anything even close to the kind of energy that she was giving was what we could say now, like in like a plain sense, wow, she's acting like you're Jesus. Okay? However, in that Christian and or secular, broadly speaking, sort of realm of symbology and narrative, there's not room for that to be actually, okay, an actualized concept, you see, right? I can't be Jesus, even if one could try to entertain the inner substantive vibe of what she was carrying across. Automatically, at the receiving end, you disassociate with it because that's impossible, and there's not even a paradigm that exists to house that energy that she's trying to throw across. Do you get what I'm saying? So if Jesus lived a couple thousand years ago and he was this Messiah and he's the Son of God and this whole thing, according to the tradition that's taken over in the Roman exile, as is said now, through that lens of understanding. Okay, and then what else? So there's that Jesus. He's great. He's Jesus. I'm not Jesus. I'm John. He's different. Okay, so that's kind of the pre-knowing that people carry as a default. No, and nobody really thinks, oh, I'm a Messiah too. That's unnatural. It's completely fucking unnatural. All right, so I will tell you as close as I can describe what it was like to experience someone organically, like fully, authentically giving you that energy, while you can't process that at the receiving end because nothing sticks to match that, what you're even symbologizing out at me, if you could say it that way. There's a story that when Columbus's ships drew close to the shore of wherever it was, the Gulf, or I don't remember, South America or the Gulf or Mexico or whichever one of those it wasn't North America, that the native peoples there, they were standing observing the ships coming in, but watch this, because they never saw anything that looks like that. They didn't think that's possible. It's not even possible to construct something that's that elaborate looking as a ship and have it float towards the water coming at you. You see? With the sails and all the ornamental things and like that, ornate stuff. So you could Google this and find out about this. They say you couldn't. The natives physically looking at the objects that comprised Columbus's ship as one extended object that's there floating, drawing close to you. You'd think if you see something that big, it's floating at you, you could see it, call it out for what it is, and prepare yourselves or something. They said the natives couldn't even see Columbus's ships because they didn't ever see it before. But then when they had it in front of them, it was like, just file not found. So they're literally not seeing it. It's like how the color blue is the last color to be given a name in many languages as they developed in history, ancient civilizations, because blue is the background color of the sky. So something linking to the psychology and the physiological perception of the mind level, you can distinguish everything from the background, but then the background is the thing that gets distinguished last, right? So background things and things without precedent, you don't see them because you don't have a formology for them, right? That was what it was like sitting there watching her convey this to me. You don't even know who you are. It's my whole career, 12 years, my dream that I could even, I can't believe I'm lucky enough to have this encounter with you today. It's my life. Mi vida. Like, what's going on here? That was like Columbus's ships to me. So the energy subtly, today looking back, I could articulate and say, yeah, the vibe-wise was like, it's treating you as if you're like Jesus. But because I'm really actually in it, and it's not like a philosophical story, okay? So my mind, the first thing it does, it Columbus ships level, like, I don't see what the hell you're even talking about. So the next auto prompt that I did for myself in my mind, I have to pin the tail on the donkey, sort of. I have to plug what she's saying, and how do I interpret it? The best interpretation, naively, that I made at the time was, okay, what does this mean about the man? You see? This must mean that I will be a really super great selling author. And when I write the cool book, that's when the sales will be high. I'm so great. You see? I had nothing else to match that to. What are you talking about? You know, I mean, what's the highest you can go, like in the way we thought at that time? What was popular back then? You know, the coaching and all that, I guess you could say, right? Self-improvement was around its peak back then. All right, so who's she seeing me as being? Columbus's ships again. And I'm going, I don't know, maybe I'm the next Tony Robbins. How could that be? You see, something like this. Oh, but no, at the level of the feeling internally, you know, what do you really know? Tony Robbins, a guy could end up being that, but that doesn't make the woman who's psychically reading him react that way. Do you see what I'm saying? To realistically, to even somebody like that, or even if you end up being like the president, like you know, whatever it is, you know, a lot of people hold Donald Trump in high regard today. So imagine that archetypal president, you know, transposed again as the archetype decades later, you know. Okay, that's pretty great too. All right, so am I the president, or am I, you know, 2.0, or am I Tony Robbins 2.0? Which one of those merits squarely and fairly the natural reaction that she had? Maybe the president a little bit closer, but even still, no, something's missing. But I don't have a name for it because I don't know. This leaves this dimension now. I can't plug what you convey to me, lady, and plug it in anywhere. So believe it or not, I actually ended up leaving that session kind of frustrated, not understanding, like, what the hell just happened. I'll share the rest of this, what happened as I recall it, but I'll just say now, after it was complete, I went to Michael, who was standing nearby right when it was done. Hey, did you like that? That's crazy cool, huh? What happened? And I'm like, I don't know, what, she didn't do that with anybody else, did she? Oh yeah, did you get your money's worth? They didn't know each other, mind you. But regardless, here's the interesting thing. I asked her at the end, I said, who are you with? Like, can I get a card or something, or where are you? You're in the printout of the brochure, because everybody who's there officially has the printout. And it was so weird. She was like, no, I'm like, everybody's here lined up for me, but I'm not even on the printout because I just came like last minute as a friend to her. But because like I'm this known figure, so they're lining up, and I'm like, okay, all right. I just don't know. I feel like when I told this story originally, the first couple or few times, I might have remembered just a couple more relevant details. I don't remember them now. There might have been, you know, one extra detail inserted here, there. Relevant things, but profound things. And again, like everything she said was on the money. Oh, of course. How could I forget this? Pardon me. No, the most important thing that she ended up concluding was like, listen, there's nothing I could tell you that's going to exceed what you yourself will be and what you will be able to do, okay, on this earth. Because again, the whole time was like, get the, you know, like what's that saying like, cat's got your tongue? Or it was so profound, like she couldn't even convey it. That must have been the lowest word count reading she's ever given in her life for the half-hour session. You see what I'm saying? Right? And yet, though ironically, she brought across so much more, actually. No, she realized at the end of the several minutes of her just tripping out that she needed a way to convey to me with some words a little more. So she ended up, after the whole shaking my hand, like you have no idea what an honor it is and all this stuff. She then said, "All right, let me put it to you this way. There's nothing else I could say to you. You don't get it. It doesn't even matter. It would be like bullshit for me to just go on and on about the little trinket, silly things that most people are interested in. Just know this. Do you see how all these people here have come today to see me?" I'm looking like, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And she's like, in the way that you are seeing all of these people come before me like this, she said, it is me, people at my level, who will be going before you. And that even as an understatement. You have no idea who you are. And she didn't tell me. She didn't tell me actually. You see? And she left it like that. And she said, that's all I can tell you. I can't tell you anymore. And by the time the session officially ended, she was like shaking my hand, and literally she was bowing. She was bowing to me. And I was like, oh, I guess I must be some future cosmic celebrity or something. Tony Robbins, I don't know. Author, or I don't know, the diplomat of the future or something out there. But that, again, where I was in my life, if I knew where the next year plus would lead me in my adventures on planet Earth, year and a half especially, about almost 2 years after, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna become the fucking star party boy now and be doing a whole bunch of party favors and party drugs at the clubs on the weekends for the next 2 years straight. Like, which again ended up ironically being one of the most important and eye and mind-opening experiences of my whole life, truly. But wildly inconsistent with the kind of gravitas that she was conveying to me. I never forgot about what she did, but because it had such little traction with what resonated with me at the practical sense of what I believed and understood it from that level back then, I couldn't really grasp at it meaningfully. So maybe it crossed my mind a few times a year, and then a couple years would go by, then I'd remember again. So for the several years afterwards, I'd from time to time remember the story back and then think, yeah, that lady, 2014, the Yoga Expo. How is that gonna turn out? What a fun experience it is living your own life, watching. How's it gonna turn out? It's just unbelievable where things have gotten now. It's like God himself has one's own life, your own life, this sort of matrix, so to speak, move and get shaped along like, hey, yeah, is this good enough for an answer for you now? The 14-year-long question? Years later, I tried to figure out again who she was. I downloaded, went through the old brochures, re-verified, like, yeah, she was right. She's not in any of these. Who was that woman? I couldn't find anything that if she had handed me a card, probably, I mean, nothing. I have no idea to this day who this woman was. I think I even tried emailing the guy who runs the expos asking about it. Like, hey, from 12 years ago, do you know the lady that was sitting at table number, what, like, and forget it. You don't even hear back. I may never know unless this story publicly ends up getting out. Who knows? She will never have forgotten that. She was so shook emotionally. She will probably, if she were ever represented or something like this, there might be a situation in the future where it comes around full circle. Okay, so presuming that she had some genuine capacity for what we can term as, hey, you go to the different traditions, you say, prophecy, nevuah, is dead, or no, it's not dead, it was revived. Okay, so people are prophets. Oh, they're all quasi-prophets to some degree. Or what, the answer changes a little bit, or the flavor of the interpretation changes slightly depending on how you look at it or who you ask. So presume that she's someone who's been doing this for so long that she's got the knack, that she has some valid level of quasi-prophecy, semi-prophecy. Okay? Even that, modestly to say. Good enough. Right? For the most part. Why not? Then, where this is not then just entertainment only and could be totally nothing, no, it's just absolutely stunning. If we presume validity for what she conveyed, and we pair that with the circumstances that are happening and playing out in this life now, what do we make of it? Can one even, as I said, or as is asked, can you even make it up? You can't even make it up. And she conveyed to me, I don't remember exactly with what words, but she conveyed to me in some sense, in addition, of course, goes without saying almost by that point, it's like, yeah, you're going to be like, to say even that you'll be known by millions and millions of people is like an understatement. It's going to be, like, to even say that is not enough. I couldn't imagine it. Again, that was another instance of being sent a Columbus's ship.